What's up, wrestling fans? We hope that all is good with you. Let's jump back into an old Observer newsletter. This one from August 2nd, 1993 Wrestling Observer newsletter by Observer staff. Hell froze over for the second time in less than 1 year as Jim Cornette and the Heavenly Bodies debuted for the World Wrestling Federation at the Monday Night Raw tapings on July 25th in Alexandria Bay, New York. The Bodies, Tom Pritchard and Jimmy Del Rey, will be announced in upcoming weeks as the opponents for Rick and Scott Steiner in a WWF Tag Team title match at SummerSlam, which will be pushed for the first time in WWF recent history as an interfederation matchup. Originally the Steiners were to face the Head Shrinkers. However, that match had to be cancelled due to a serious leg infection suffered by Fatu out of the ring that will keep him out of action indefinitely. In addition, Cornette was also announced as the new spokesperson, read that manager, for WWF champ Yokozuna. This took place during a contract signing for the Lex Luger vs. Yokozuna WWF title match at SummerSlam, where Mr. Fuji brought in Cornette as a surprise, and the storyline was that Cornette worked the contract with a clause that this would be Luger's only chance at the title, which pretty well guarantees the finish. Since the WWF is pretty much rolling the dice and putting everything down on Luger's back, it's important for this title win to garner as much interest as possible to start things off on the right foot, and it is no secret that Mr. Fuji's promos aren't strong enough to carry such an important angle. In addition, Luger vs. Yokozuna will probably be the headline match all fall at the house shows after SummerSlam, and somebody needs to be able to do strong interviews to get it over, and Fuji wasn't going to be that someone. There had been rumors throughout wrestling dating back for months that the WWF was looking for a new manager to work with Yokozuna. Realizing Fuji wasn't nearly at the level needed for the heel the promotion was focusing so much on. Cornette will be doing all the promo work for Yokozuna Starling on the television that airs either August 2nd or August 9th. On the July 26 tapings in Utica, Cornette did an interview for Yokozuna which saw several babyface wrestlers come out, Luger not being one of them, waving the small flags. They again passed out flags before the show to the fans as well, while the sound system played Stars and Stripes for Ev. Cornette and the Bodies were acknowledged by the WWF announcers as being from Smoky Mountain Wrestling, called the hottest wrestling promotion in the South, on their first 2 nights in. Bobby Heenan, who did the interview with Cornette on the program that will air on Raw on August 2nd, acknowledged his SMW feuds with the Armstrongs and the Rock and Roll Express. This marks the first time in modern history that the WWF has on television acknowledged by name another wrestling organization. It is believed that acknowledging his own promotion and talking of it on television in a positive light was the key to getting Cornette to agree to come in. In addition, the WWF is going to plug the SMW house shows in Knoxville on its local TV show in that market. In addition, some WWF talent will be made available to work SMW major shows, all of the WWF relationship with USWA. Supposedly the only deal made was that Cornette and the Bodies were to work 4 dates as independents for the WWF, the 3 television taping dates, the Raw taping on July 25th, the Superstars taping on July 26th in Utica, New York, and the Challenge taping on July 29th in Plattsburgh, New York, and SummerSlam. On July 26th, they held a dry run match with the Steiners vs. Bodies for the tag team title, ending with Cornette interfering for the DQ in a match that was said to be only okay. The deal, which was kept a secret from all other SMW employees, was put together between Cornette and Bruce Pritchard, Tom's younger brother, and originally simply consisted of the Bodies and Cornette being brought as a team from another federation challenging a WWF babyface tag team, likely being the Smoking Guns. With the injury to Fatu combined with Fuji's incompetence as a manager in such an important scenario, the original plans changed drastically. The deal probably stemmed originally from Cornette's attempts to use Big Boss Man on a few SMW house shows in August. Supposedly Cornette will be taping some of the event center promos for Yokozuna's matches while at the 3 days of taping, with any additional interviews being taped from home rather than being brought into Connecticut. Cornette on at least 2 prior occasions had turned down WWF offers, the most recent coming in late 1991 when he was offered the spot to manage Ric Flair in his series against Hulk Hogan when Bobby Heenan pulled himself from the road, in the spot that eventually went to Mr. Perfect. On the surface, this looks like a deal that helps both promotions. SMW, which is struggling at the gate, gains whatever credibility, whether it be positive or negative, and that can be argued, of having 3 of its headliners appear on the most widely viewed wrestling show in the country, and on a major pay-per-view event. A similar circumstance took place earlier this year when Cornette and the Old Heavenly Bodies along with the Rock and Roll Express did 2 WCW television tapings, and the Slamboree pay-per-view show, and it's really hard to see if that turned out to be a boost or not for SMW. Although a lot of the higher-ups in WCW didn't like the idea of using non-WCW talent in a key position on a pay-per-view show. It's ironic only because Cornette, bad shows and an overall negative stigma, and that to be successful his company has to give the impression it has nothing to do with them. To protect that belief, in both the WCW appearance and in this one, it will be emphasized that Cornette and company are outsiders and not involved with the Fed. This working agreement will probably result in SMW using WWF talent to augment its big shows. With Titan cutting back to one show per night on August 15th and adding so much new talent at the same time, there will be a tremendous number of wrestlers who will receive infrequent bookings, or in many cases no bookings at all, and that translates into little or no money. Titan, in order to keep a contractual hold on that talent, can and will be looking to book the talent out to independents like SMW, and can even work out a deal where some may even appear regularly in the SMW territory. The WWF will get to finally test the waters of working what can be promoted as an interfederational feud, the kind which has proven to be immensely successful financially in recent years in Japan. Many, including myself. In addition, Titan has someone who presumably can garner additional heat and interest in its most important matchup of the year. However, it is hard to believe that the WWF would give so much television airtime to Cornette, let alone violate its most basic long-lasting rule in regard to acknowledging by name another wrestling group, for only a one-shot deal, no matter how important SummerSlam may be. Cornette's role behind the scenes at SMW requires so much time that he simply couldn't work any kind of a regular schedule with Titan and still have enough time left to do justice to SMW. Beach Blast final poll results. Thumbs up 101, 36.7%. Thumbs down 126, 45.8%. In the middle 48, 17.5%. Best match poll. Vicious and Vader vs. Sting and Smith 137. Pillman and Austin vs. Roma and Anderson 53. Ric Flair vs. Barry Windham 19. Dustin Rhodes vs. Rick Rude 10. Worst match poll. Max Payne vs. Johnny B. Bad. 80. Ron Simmons vs. Paul Orndorff 55. Steve Regal vs. Eric Watts 45. Dustin Rhodes vs. Rick Rude 21. Based on phone calls, letters and fax messages to the Observer as of Monday, July 26. Margin of error, 100%. Based on very sketchy figures, it appears the Beach Blast pay-per-view show did in the 0.4 to 0.5% buy rate range. The figure was expected to be slightly below that of Slamboree, which would gross WCW somewhere between $950,000 and $1.15 million. While no decision has been made at press time, it is believed WCW will be making a major announcement within the next week concerning a new booker. Both Terry Funk and Jerry Jarrett were interviewed of late for Dusty Rhodes' booking job. Funk pretty well has publicly stated he believed himself to be out of the running, which led to speculation regarding Jarrett getting the position to run rampant throughout wrestling. Most believe Funk isn't being considered because he made it clear in a meeting with Bill Shaw that he didn't like having to clear all his booking ideas through Eric Bischoff before they could be implemented. If Jarrett were to get the position, what that would mean as far as the USWA, which Jarrett owns a majority interest in, and his own business relationship with Titan Sports, is unknown. If Jarrett is hired, besides likely WCW turning into a more Memphis-oriented promotion, which means heavier on the gimmick matches and run-in finishes, but faster moving angles and talent being brought in and out at a more rapid rate, is that it means one more son will be getting pushed as a top babyface. At press time, it was believed that Jarrett, who reportedly was in Atlanta during the early part of the week in meetings with WCW brass, was far from a sure bet to take the position. Ron Scholar's International Wrestling Council has released the lineups for the first two AAA-based cards in the United States since the July-April '92 show in Los Angeles that drew an incredible $119,000 house. On August 28 at the Los Angeles Sports Arena, the show will be headlined by a triangular match, Everyone for Themselves, involving Conan El Barbaro, CN Cars and Jake Roberts, managed by Diamond Dallas Page. While that match promises little in the way of good wrestling, the undercard seems to make up for it with two potentially great matches: Rey Mysterio Jr. and Misterioso and Volador vs. Psicosis, and Heavy Metal and Jerry Estrada, and a midgets match with Mascarita Sagrada and Octagon Cheeto vs. Espectrito and Jurito Estrada. The remaining three matches will have Pero Aguayo and Rayo de Jalisco Jr. and Octagon vs. Mascara Año 2000 and Ice Killer and Fuerza Guerrera, and local wrestlers Cesar Sando Jr. and Loverboy vs. Pilato Suicida and Mercurio and Superboy vs. Thunder Machine. On August 29 at the San Diego Sports Arena, the show will be headlined by a Parejas Increíbles, Face and Heel vs. Face and Heel, match with Roberts and Aguayo vs. Conan and Caras, Misterioso vs. Huichol in a mask vs. hair match, Rayo and Octagon Cheeto vs Ice Killer and Jerry Estrada and Jurito Estrada in a mixed match and Mysterio Jr. vs Psicosis in a singles match. There are still plans of running shows with AAA wrestlers in both Las Vegas and New York, although dates aren't confirmed yet. It will be interesting to see how the Los Angeles television show looks, and if it's programmed with localized interviews and promos to emphasize the sports arena card. As of late, it has been a lot of EMLL combined with AAA. Apparently an angle was taped overseas with Roberts and Page attacking and beating up midgets Espectrito and Mascarita Sagrada, so we'll see if it is inserted into the television show. Of late, Roberts' name hasn't even been mentioned on AAA regular television. The World Wrestling Network WWN is scheduled to run its first house show this coming Friday in Fort Hood, Texas. The television taping previously set for July 31st, as mentioned last week, was canceled, due largely to the facility in Austin, Texas being unsuitable for a first-class television tape. Since the show was set to be the pilot to sell the show to stations, production values and special effects needed to be a higher priority than match quality, interview quality, and angles, since station managers who would decide thumbs up or down generally don't notice those things and often judge based on how eye-catchy the show is. One does have to ask the question as to how come it took until just 2 weeks before the pilot before the building was looked over and this fact was realized to also realize there is more to this. There is no imminent new date for the first taping, although a date in September has been bandied about. There are many things going on behind the scenes that have to be worked out before this gets off the ground. In what could be a related note, the National Wrestling Alliance will be holding its annual convention on September 3rd in Las Vegas. Probably the most important topic that will be under consideration is the status of the NWA World title. Even though a legal letter was sent by the NWA to WCW regarding the unauthorized changing of the NWA title at Beach Blast, nothing will come of it, largely because Barry Windham isn't going to be wrestling anyway and most NWA members like the idea of Ric Flair as champion once again. This is where it gets sticky. I'd surmise that many, if not most, of the non-WCW members of the NWA would rather, for many reasons, have Flair as champion instead of Rick Rude, which WCW wants, because if they were to get dates on the champion, Flair would mean more on a one-shot deal than Rude. According to bylaws, the NWA title recognition is in the hands of the board of directors, which is now a two-man board of Steve Rickard, New Zealand, and Seiji Sakaguchi, Japan. Bill Watts, who was the third member of the board, resigned his post about 1 week ago, which I guess says that he's fed up with wrestling completely. Currently the NWA consists of WCW, New Japan Pro Wrestling, Jim Crockett, Larry O'Day, Rickard, Excalibur Promotions, Dennis Coraluzzo, and Gary Luster, and possibly one or two others. There has been a lot of talk of late that Jim Cornette and SMW were going to join the NWA, but as of yet they haven't applied. Main stipulations for a promoter to become a member are a $500 entrance fee and proof that the promoter has been in business for more than 1 year. Since WCW is planning on changing the title to Rude on September 19th, this meeting may be an interesting political football game and conceivably could wind up with WCW losing power in the NWA and the title change not being recognized, which of course will make the previously taped television with Rude as champion a meh. Results: July 15th, Bowling Green, Kentucky, USWA 300. Danny Davis v. Randy Rocket. Miss Simpson v. Miss Texas. Southern title, Jeff Jarrett v. Brian Christopher DQ. Rex King and Steve Dahl v. Jeff Gaylord and Homeboy, Mark Freer. Jarrett and Texas v. Christopher and Texas. July 16th, Kings Mountain, North Carolina, PWF 100. Randy Sledge v. Ray Hudson. Mad Dog v. Killdozer. Russian Assassin, Hudson v. Emilio Olacia. American GI v. Jeff Victory DQ. George South and Terry Austin v. Scotty E. Lowbody and Scotty McKeever. Lumberjack match, Austin Steele v. Italian Stallion, Killdozer and GI1 Battle Royal. July 17th, Chester, South Carolina, NOAA 157. Jimmy Valentine v. Mustafa the Butcher. Jackie Fulton v. Hunter Thompson. Jay Eagle DDQ Beastmaster. Rick Link, Harold Helms v. Paul Jones Jr., Kenny V. and Daryl Duggan D. Superstar and Assassin No. 2. Wahoo McDaniel DDQ Buddy Shane. July 17th, Albemarle, North Carolina, PWF. Terry Austin v. American GI. Flaming Youth and Cruel Connection No. 2 v. Super Brat and Black Scorpion. George South v. Star Rider. Lumberjack match, Italian Stallion v. Austin Steele, Cruel Connection No. 2 1 Bunkhouse Battle Royal. July 17th, Brighton, Tennessee, Tennessee Independent. Mr. Madness v. Shane Douglas, not the WCW one. Butcherman and Jesse D.B. Lawman Williams and Brad Dustin. Eric Fontaine B. Mr. Cry, Butcher and D.B. Stacy Austin and Paul Henning. Scott Baker B. David Denton, David Webb, Destin 1 Battle Royal. July 18th Warwick, Rhode Island, WWF. Philip Holla B. Mike Sharp. Adam Bomb B. Tito Santana. Kimala B. Papa Shango. Tatanka Ker Bam Bam Bigelow. Doink the Clown B. Marty Jannetty. Mr. Hughes B. Randy Savage. July 18th Los Angeles Arena, Mexico in Ponky Boy H.B. Palomino Ramirez. Thunder Machine and Vandal Drummond B. Larry Ludden and Fisico Nuclear. Tlaloc and Flammer B. Aguila Azteca and Mike Caneda. Los Verdugos de Guatemala B. Leopardo Negro and Ramirez. Capitan Oro and Kiss and Stuka B. Cesar Sando Jr. and Loverboy and Superboy. July 19th Okazaki, All Japan, 2500. Mitsuo Momota B. Kurt Bayer. Richard Slinger B. Takao Mori. The Destroyer B. Masao Inoue. Giant Baba and Rusher Kimura and Mighty Inoue B. Haruka Eigen and Ryuma Izumida and Joel Deaton. Mark and Chris Youngblood B. Pete Roberts and Kendall Windham. Big Bubba Rogers and Johnny Smith B. Kena Kobashi and Satoru Asako. Akira Tao B. Tsuyoshi Kikuchi. Steve Williams and Terry Gordy B. Stan Hansen and Johnny Ace. Mitsuharu Masawa and Jun Akiyama B. Toshiaki Kawada and Masa Fuji. July 19th Ishikawa, New Japan, 4,150 sellout. Norio Oniga B. Yuji Nagata. Toshimitsu Ishizawa and Osamu Kido B. Tatsuhito Takaiwa and Black Cat. Brad Reingens B. Manabu Nakanishi. Hiro Saito B. Akatoshi Saito. Jushin Liger and Osamu Nishimura B. El Samurai and Shinjiro Otani. Scott Norton and Hercules B. Masa Chono and Akira Nagami. Shinya Hashimoto and Takayuki Izukabe Super Strong Machine and Tatsutoshi Goto. Hawk and Power Warrior B. Brad Armstrong and TNT. Michiyoshi Ohara and Hiroshi Hazi and Keiji Muto and Tatsumi Fujinami B. Kunyaki Kobayashi and Great Kabuki and Kengo Kimura and Shiro Koshinaka. July 19th Williamsburg, Kentucky, SMW TV taping, 356 sellout. Heavenly Bodies B. Chris Comet and Larry Santo. Tim Homer B. Joe Kazana. Tracy Smothers B. Juicy Johnny. TV title of Steve Armstrong B. Dirty White Boy DQ. Steve and Scott Armstrong B. Johnny and Kazana. TV title White Boy B. Comet. Non-title Rock and Roll Express B. Bruise Brothers. Horner B. Brian Lee DQ. SMW title Mothers B. Lee DQ. Santo and Comet B. Bruise Brothers DQ. TV title White Boy B. Kazana. Chris Condito B. Johnny. Brian Armstrong B. Killer Kyle. Steve and Scott Armstrong B. Heavenly Bodies. July 19th Natori, All Japan Women, 1,595. Simi Numata B. Chikako Hasegawa. Tomoko Watanabe B. Kaoru Ito. Tashio Yamada and Takako Inoue and Mima Shimoda B. Infernal Kaoru and Asia Kong and Bat Yoshinaga. Manami Toyota B. Saki Hasegawa. Yumiko Hara and Kyoko Inoue B. Akira Hokuto and Atsuko Mita. July 19th Miami, SWF, 300. Mike D'Angelo B. The Gouger. Stan Steele B. Al Fidelista. Rocco Gibraltar B. Sheik Ali, Demon Hellstorm and the Looter B. Sergeant Fury and Private Greg Fisk. Fisk 1 Battle Royal. July 20th Huntsville, Alabama, WCW Worldwide Taping, 2,000/mainly paper. Non-squash results, Hollywood Blondes B. Eric Watts and Frankie Lancaster. Watts B. Lancaster. Johnny B. Bad B. Max Payne. TV title Paul Orndorff B. Marcus Bagwell. Sting B. Shanghai Pierce. Nasty Boys B. Bobby Eaton and Chris Benoit. Arnold Anderson and Paul Roma and Bagwell B. Hollywood Blondes and Orndorff. July 20th Kiryu, New Japan, 2,520. Manabu Nakanishi B. Shinjiro Otani. El Samurai and Osamu Nishimura B. Tatsuhito Takaiwa and Black Cat. Brad Reingens B. Tatsutoshi Goto. Akira Nagami and Yuji Nagata B. Brad Armstrong and Norio Oniga. Osamu Kido B. Toshimitsu Ishizawa. Jushin Liger and Masa Chono B. Akatoshi Saito and Kengo Kimura. Shiro Koshinaka and Great Kabuki and Kunyaki Kobayashi B. Michiyoshi Ohara and Takayuki Izuka and Keiji Moot. Hawk and Power Warrior B. Super Strong Machine and Hiro Saito. Hiroshi Hazi and Shinya Hashimoto and Tatsumi Fujinami B. Scott Norton and Hercules and TNT. July 20th Nagasaki FMW, 3,213 sellout, AG Ezuki B. Mr. Chin, White African and Masked Canadian B. Zombie and Damien, Riki Fuji and Big Titan be Koji Nakagawa and Battle Ranger, Yuki Nabano and Miwa Sato and Megumi Kudo be Combat Toyota and Crusher Matamari and Shark Tsuchi. The Shiken Sabu be Tarzan Goto and Mr. Ganasuke. No roped barbed wire street fight death match. Atsushi Onita and Samba Asako be Mr. Pogo and the Gladiator. July 21st Tokyo Korakuen Hall PWFG 1200, Charlie Anderson be Carl Greco, Jerry Flynn be Mark Ashford, Smith, Mark Starr, Bart Vale be Yuki Ishikawa, Yoshiaki Fujiwara d Toshimitsu Ishizawa 30 minutes. July 21st Saitama All Japan Women, 1620 prelim results unavailable. That Yoshinaga be Kaoru Ito, Hira Hokuto and Yumiko Hata and Toshio Yamada be Manami Toyota and Kyoko Inoue and Saki Hasegawa. July 21st Sanyo JWP 1200 prelim results unavailable. Devil Masami and Cutie Suzuki be Hikari Fukuoka and Candy Akutsu, Boyashoi Kid and Dynamite Kansai be Plum Mariko and Mayumi Okaki. July 22nd Tokyo Korakuen Hall New Japan, 2000 sellout, Black Cat be Tatsuhito Takaiwa. Norio Oniga be Shinjiro Otani. Akatoshi Saito be Yuji Nagata. Akira Nagami be Manabu Nakanishi. Jushin Liger and Toshimitsu Ishizawa be El Samurai and Osamu Nishimura. Super Strong Machine and Tatsutoshi Goto and Hiro Saito be Michiyoshi Ohara and Takayuki Lizuka and Shinya Hashimoto. Hawk and Power Warrior be Scott Norton and Hercules. Tatsumi Fujinami and Keiji Muto and Masachono, and Hiroshi Hazu be Masashi Aoyagi and Shiro Koshinaka and Great Kabuki and Kengo Kimura. July 22nd Hitachi All Japan. The Destroyer be Masao Inoue. Chris and Mark Youngblood be Kurt Bayer and Satoru Asako. Tsuyoshi Kikuchi be Johnny Smith. Giant Baba and Rusher Kimura and Mitsuo Momoto be Haruka Eigen and Ryuma Izumida and Joel Deaton 2732. Kendall Windham and Big Bubba Rogers be Akira Tao and Takawa Mori. Steve Williams and Terry Gordy and Richard Slinger be Toshiaki Kawada and Masa Fuchi and Mighty Inoue. Mitsuharu Misawa and Kena Kobashi and Jun Akiyama be Stan Hansen and Johnny Ace and Pete Roberts. July 22nd Oita FMW. White African DDQ Zombie. Masked Canadian be Damien. Combat Toyota and Crusher Matamari and Shark Tsuchiya be Megumi Kudo and Yuki Nabano and Miwa Sato. The Sheik and Sabu be Tarzan Goto and Eiji Ezuki, Mr. Pogo and Big Titan and the Gladiator be Atsushi Onita and Samba Asako and Mr. Ganasuke. July 22nd Tampa ICWA. Butch Long D. Dennis the Menace. Kangaroo Kid be Jim Powers, not WWF wrestler of same name. Rick Thames be Manny Fernandez. Sonny T be Chris Nelson. Jumbo Beretta and Jeff Bradley NC Top Gun Assassin and Billy Mack. Lord of Discipline be Frankie Rose to win IQA title. July 23rd Syracuse, New York, WWF, 5000. Jim Powers be Papa Shango. Adam Bomb be Owen Hart. Bam Bam Bigelow double count out with Tatanka. IC title, Shawn Michaels be Mr. Perfect. Bushwhackers and Tiger Jackson be Blake Beverly and Brooklyn Brawler and Little Louie, Doink the Clown 2, Steve Kieran, be Tito Santana. Randy Savage be Mr. Hughes. July 23rd Scranton, Pennsylvania, WWF, 2500. 1-2-3 Kid be Terry Taylor, Damian Demento be Tahitian Savage, Lloyd Anoya. Virgil be Mike Sharp. Doink the Clown be Marty Jannetty. Bastion Booger be Kimala. WWF Tag Title, Rick and Scott Steiner be Money Incorporated. WWF Title, Bret Hart be Yokozuna, Do. July 23rd Mochizuki All Japan 2000 sellout, Pete Roberts be Kurt Bayer, The Destroyer be Satoru Asako, Kendall Windham be Takawa Mori, Giant Baba and Rusher Kimura and Tsuyoshi Kikuchi be Haruka Eigen and Ryuma Izumida and Joel Deaton, Johnny Smith be Mighty Inoue, Chris and Mark Youngblood be Masao Inoue and Yoshinari Ogawa. Stan Hansen and Johnny Ace and Big Bubba Rogers be Mitsuharu Misawa and Kena Kobashi and Jun Akiyama, Toshiaki Kawada and Akira Tao and Masafuchi be Terry Gordy and Steve Williams and Richard Slinger. July 23rd Gifu, New Japan, 4,350 sellout, Shinjiro Otani be Tatsuhito Takaiwa, Norio Oniga be Yuji Nagata, Manabu Nakanishi and Osamu Kido be Brad Reingens and Black Cat, Michiyoshi Ohara and Takayuki Lizuka and Akira Nagami be Super Strong Machine and Tatsutoshi Goto and Hiro Sight. Shinya Hashimoto be Akatoshi Saito, Brad Armstrong and Hercules be TNT and Masa Saito, Tiger Mask and El Samurai be Jushin Liger and Osamu Nishimura, Great Kabuki and Shiro Koshinaka be Keiji Muto and Hiroshi Hazi and Hashimoto and Masachono and Tatsumi Fujinami be Kunyaki Kobayashi and Kabuki and Koshinaka and Kengo Kimura. July 23, Wanda La Barrera Gym in Mexico City, AAA. Juventud Guerrera and Mr. Condor and Marabunta B Tiger Man and Los Matemáticos H and 3 stars. Octagonchito and Mascara de Sagrada and Micro Conan B Espectrito and Picudito and Nid de Grisa Strata 3¼ stars. Super Muñeco and Lamparn and Hassan B El Cobarde 2 and Ricky Boy and El Indomito, DQ. Fuerza Guerrera and Fishman and Blue Panther NC Love Machine and Eddie Guerrero and El Hijo del Santo 3 stars. Parada Morgan and MS1 and El Satanico BCN Caris and Mascara Año 2000 and Universo 2003 stars. July 23, Arena Coliseo in Mexico City, EMLL. Supremo I and Popotecas and Mogar B Bronce and Aguila Solitaria and Chamaco Volks, BQ 1¼ stars. Triton and Enter and Metallico B Tornado Negro I and Panico and Kung Fu 1¾ stars. Americo Rocca and Oro B Gran Marcus Jr. and Cusho Salvaje, DQ. Negro Casas and Felino in Dr. Wagner Jr. B Dandy and Corazon de Leon and La Fiera 3 stars half. July 23, Rural Retreat Virginia, SMW, 300. Dirty White Boy B Underdog Chris Condito. SMW title, Tracy Smothers B Brian Lee, do. SMW tag title, Bruise Brothers B Tim Horner and Bobby Fulton, Bob and Scott and Steve Armstrong B Heavenly Bodies and Jim Cornette, Smothers 1 Battle Royal. July 23, Saga FMW, 2445 sellout. AG Ezeki B Mr. Chin, Ricky Fuji B Tanaka. Sabu B White African. Crusher Matamari and Shark Tsuchiya and Combat Toyota B Megumi Kudo and Yuki Nabano and Keiko Iwam. Masked Canadian B The Sheik, DQ. Tarzan Goto and Battle Ranger B Damien and Zombie. The Gladiator and Big Titan and Mr. Pogo B Atsushi Onita and Mr. Ganasuke and Koji Nakagawa. July 23, Su NOW. Kishin Kawabata B Umanasuke Ueda Jr. Apollo Sugawara B Joe Hanan. John Hawk B Korean Giant. Goro Tsurumi B Hisakatsu Oya. Rod Price B Hiroshi Hatanaka. Umanasuke Ueda B Asian Killer. Tiger Jeet Singh Sr. and Junior B Ishinriki and Kendo Nagasaki. July 23, Dallas Sportatorium PWF, 1014.74 paid. Meet, Mike Ivy, B Jimmy James. Hurricane Ramirez B El Gran Colosso. Stephen Dane B Alex Porto. Killer Tim Brooks B Rick Guerin. Scott Putski B Guido Falcone. Iceman King Parsons B Chris Adams. Chaz Taylor B Bullman Downs. Black Bart B Chris Barrett. Falcone B Playboy Wilbur. Awesome Kong and King Kong B Reggie B Fine and Action Jackson. July 23, Kyoto, JWP. Prelim results unavailable. Boyoshoy Kid and Dynamite Kansai B Plum Mariko and Hikari Fukuoka. Mayumi Ozaki B Cutie Suzuki. July 23, Chiba, All Japan Women. Infernal Kaoru B Tomoko Watanabe. Mima Shimoda B Saki Hasegawa. Yumiko Hata and Takako Inoue B Kyoko Inoue and Bat Yoshinaga. Akira Hokuto B Atsuko Mita. Asia Kong and Bull Nakano and Kaoru Ito B Suzuka Manami and Manami Toyota and Toshio Yamada. July 23, Fort Oglethorpe, Georgia, TWA. Dr. Feel Good B Intruder. Johnny Blaze B Frankie Lee. Joel Travis B Sweet Stefan, Core, Sam Colt and Rick Justice B Danny Marlowe and Rawhead Rex. Richie Dye and Woody Woodchuck B Kevin Akins and Randy Steele. Chance Myers DDQ Jimmy Sharp. July 23, Muskegon, Michigan, Motor City, 99. Scott Damore B Nightmare No. 1. Denny Cass D Dan Severn. Eric Freedom B Nightmare No. 3. Killer Canarek B Super Key. Woody Lee B Mickey Doyle. July 24, Hershey, Pennsylvania, WWF, 2000. 1-2-3 Kid B Terry Taylor, Damian Demento B Tahitian Savage. Virgil B Mike Sharp. Doink the Clown B Marty Jannetty, Bastion Booger B Kimala, WWF Tag Title, Rick and Scotch Tyner B Money Incorporated. WWF Title, Bret Hart B Yokozuna, DQ. July 24, Kitakyushu, FMW. Tanaka B Mr. Chin. Miwa Sato B Keiko Iwam, Eiji Ezeki and Mr. Ganasuke and Katsuji Ueda B Shirk Road and Matsuyama and Abe. WWWA Midget Title Little Frankie B Tomes Otsunakake, Yasha Kuranai B Yuki Nabano, Zombie and Damien B Koji Nakagawa and Battle Ranger. Crusher Matamari and Shark Tsuchiya B Eagle Sawai and Yukari Osawa. The Sheik and Sabu B White African and Masked Canadian. WWA Women's Title, Combat Toyota B Megumi Kudo to win vacant title. Street Fight, Big Titan and the Gladiator and Ricky Fuji be Great Punk and Tarzan Goto and Samba Asako. No Rope Explosive Barbed Wire Land Mine Death Match, Atsushi Onita be Mr. Pogo. July 24th Ryogo All Japan, 2,500 sellout. The Destroyer be Mitsuo Momota. Johnny Smith be Kurt Bayer. Giant Baba and Rusher Kimura and Mighty Inoue be Ryuma Izumida and Haruka Eigen and Joel Deaton 2024. Big Bubba Rogers and Kendall Windham be Mark and Chris Youngblood. Masao Inoue and Yoshinari Ogawa be Kenta Kobashi and Satoru Asako. Terry Gordy and Steve Williams and Richard Slinger be Mitsuharu Masawa and Jun Akiyama and Tsuyoshi Kikuchi. Toshiaki Kawada and Akira Tao and Masafuchi be Stan Hansen and Johnny Ace and Pete Roberts. July 24th Welch, West Virginia, SMW, 418. Dirty White Boy be Bobby Blaze. Tim Horner be Chris Condito. SMW title, Tracy Smothers be Brian Lee DQ. SMW tag title, Bruce Brothers be Bobby and Jackie Fulton. Bob and Scott and Steve Armstrong be Heavenly Bodies and Jim Cornette. July 24th Morioka, Michinoku Pro. Grand Naniwa be Shiryu. Jinsei Shinzaki be Terry Boy DQ. Tajiri be Akihito Yonakawa. Sato be Taka Michinoku. UWA Welterweight title vs Mask, Great Sasuke be Super Dolphin to win title 2054. July 24th Nagoya, JWP. Prelim results unavailable. Mayumi Ozaki be Hikari Fukuoka. Devil Masami and Plum Mariko be Dynamite Kansai and Candy Akutsu. July 24th Minot, North Dakota, Abrams UWF, 300. Mr. Outrageous, Al Burke be Randy Gust. Steve Ray be Todd Becker. Jim Brunzel be Masked Marvel, Burke. Ray be Outrageous. Brian Blair be Becker. Blair and Brunzel be Black Hearts. Bob Orton be Warlord, Core. July 24th Chatsworth, Georgia, MWF. Gene Spurlock be Dark Man. Sam Colt be Johnny Blaze, Core. David Young be Danny Marlowe. Rawhead Rex be Larry Santana. Joel Travis and Frankie Lee be Roger Sartain and Jimmy Sharp. July 24th LaSalle, ONT Motor City, 90. Jack Graham, Chris Carter be Max Anthony. Lady Lumberjack be Blondie. Canadian Lightning be Chris Pion and Shinobi. Rock Stevens be Dan Severn, Mickey Doyle and Scott Damore be Denny Cass and Al Snow. July 24th Chicago Heights, Illinois, IWC. Quicksilver be Ronnie Vegas. Tom Davis and TJ Powers be Rob Morgan and Chris. Little Josh be Lone Eagle, Candy Divine be Coco Ware be Rip Rogers. Hillbilly Jim be Honky Tonk Man. July 24th Portland, Oregon, USA. Jim Pope be John Rambo. Hawaiian Kid D. Dane Rush, Carl Pope be Nick Danger. Jesse Barr be Silver Shadow. Colonel De Beers be Bruiser Brian, Core. July 24th Cloverdale, BC, WCCW, 260. Mike Roselli and Dobie Gillis be Buddy Wayne and Pat Brady. Johnny Canuck be Vern Siebert. White Dragon be Terry Tomko. Cage match for WCCW title, Michelle Starr be Mighty Quinn to win title. Cage match for held up WCCW tag titles, Timothy Flowers and firefighter Adrian B. Rocky Delasura and Ole Olson to win titles. But belts were held up again after the match when Flowers piledriver Johnny Flash, manager, 3 times. July 25th Dallas, Big D, 272. Candyman, Reggie B. Fine be The Natural Mike Ivy. Ray Evans be Billy Steele, Mike Davis Kerbullman Downs. Terry Sims be Mr. DQ. Shane on pole. July 26th Alexandria Bay, New York, WWF Monday Night Raw taping 1000, Reno Riggins be TNT, Barn Bigelow be Marty Jannetty, 123 Kid be Damian Demento, Rick and Scott Steiner be Barry Horowitz and Adam Bomb be Tony Roy, Randy Savage be Doink the Clown, Mr. Perfect be Bastion Booger be IC title, Owen Hart be Shawn Michaels DQ, Rick and Scott Steiner be Tatanka be Mr. Hughes DQ, Bushwhackers and Macho Midget, Tiger Jackson be Brooklyn Brawler and Blake Beverly and Little Louie, Razor Ramon be Smoking Guns be Demento and Mike Sharp, Heavenly Bodies be IC title, Michaels be Perfect, WWF title, Bret Hart be Yokozuna, DQ. July 26th Utica, New York, WWF Superstars taping, 5,000 sellout non-squash results, Virgil be Van Lemmer, WWF tag title, Rick and Scott Steiner be Heavenly Bodies, DQ, IC title, Shawn Michaels b Mr. Perfect, Randy Savage b Mr. Hughes, WWF title, Bret Hart b Yokozuna, DQ. Special thanks to Ronnie Crowder, Joseph Offenbach, Dan Paris, Dan Farron, George South, Casey O'Connor, Greg Fisk, Gene Restaino, Mad Jack, Kurt Schneider, Shannon Rose, Paul MacArthur, Dave Shearer, Paul MacArthur, Steve Wacker, Brian Hildebrand, John Clark, David Lagana, Freddie Fargo, Stuart Kemp. Mexico Part 2 of the Love Machine turn took place July 23 at Juan de la Barrera Gym in Mexico City and seemed to lead to a break-up of the Atomic Duo Jr., Elio Del Santo and Eddie Guerrero, tag team. Bald Machine, who turned on Perm Aguayo after Aguayo's interference got him disqualified and caused him to lose his hair against Blue Panther, was back as a face teaming with Santo and Eddie against Panther and Fuerza Guerrera and Fishman. In the third fall, Santo did a crossbody off the top rope to the floor attempting to hit Guerrera, but instead hitting Machine when Guerrero moved. At this point, Machine got up and grabbed a Santo mask from a kid at ringside, and while wearing the mask, attacked partner Eddie G. He then unmasked. When Eddie G came to his senses, he attacked Santo, believing he was attacked first, and Machine joined in doubling on Santo. The crowd was screaming for Panther, who is pretty much a face even though technically a heel, to make the save, which he finally did. But this time Panther's partners turned on him and Guerrero pulled Panther's mask off and handed it to Love Machine. The main event saw Los Infimales beat Los Hermanos Dinamita in 2 straight falls. Although we reported last week that Los Infimales had captured the Mexican Trios title, based on television, it appeared either that didn't happen or the Dinamita regained the belts since the Infimales issued a challenge to Dinamita for the titles on July 30th. The July 16th major AAA show came off as a pretty good major show on television, with a heavy pyrotechnics and a packed house of 20,000. Rayo de Jalisco Sr., at age 61, appeared in a 6-man tag in a suburb of the city, Guadalajara, where he is the biggest drawing card of all time in. Jerry Estrada deserves some kind of an award for selling big for Rayo Sr.'s patented spots, even though Rayo's attempt to do high spot was done in such slow motion it was painful to watch. Rayo wasn't in much, but when he was in, it was kind of like watching a much smaller version of JYD trying lucha libre moves. He even won the first fall after a series of head-butts on Fishman, who teamed with Estrada and Ice Killer. Unlike some U.S. legends of recent years put in the same situation and age bracket, Rayo did the right thing for business in the third fall by getting taken out with a chair shot, allowing all 3 heels to triple team and bust up Aguayo. The Panther vs. Machine match in my opinion was great, with the crowd stomping their feet because the final fall was so suspenseful. Actually, it seemed Machine was the crowd favorite until the very end of the match, even though nobody really dislikes Panther. It was amazing just how soundly they turned against Machine in the third fall when he picked Panther up before pinning him 5 times. Even the fans with signs for Love Machine were cursing at him by the finish. The actual finish was that Machine had Panther up for a tombstone piledriver, which is illegal in Mexico. Aguayo, Machine's second, with his head all bandaged up from his match earlier on the card, physically stopped Machine for doing the move, and the ref turned around and saw Aguayo in the ring and DQ'd Machine. Aguayo tried to apologize, but Machine attacked him and laid him out again. Rey Mysterio's creative high spot of the week. After Psicosis took a high bump over the top to the floor, Mysterio leapt onto partner Winter's shoulders, as if he was going to give his partner a Frankensteiner, but his partner caught him and propelled him over the top rope, with Mysterio turning it into an Osai moonsault block onto Psicosis. All Japan, the next tour takes place August 20th to September 9th, with major shows taking place September 3rd at Tokyo Budokan Hall and August 27th at Osaka Fujitsu Gym. Appearing on the entire tour are Terry Gordy, Steve Williams, Doug Furness, Dan Crawford, Abdullah the Butcher, Giant Kimala II the Patriot, The Eagle, Joel Deaton Thunder and Lightning, Richard Slinger, and making his All Japan debut will be Tracy Smothers. Appearing just the final week of the tour will be Stan Hansen and Ted DiBiase, who will be forming a tag team getting ready for the year-end tournament. Hansen and DiBiase were the top foreign tag team in All Japan during the mid-80s before DiBiase went to Titan, and figure they'll be worked into a 4-way feud for tag team supremacy in the company with Gordy and Williams, Toshiaki Kawada and Akira Tao, and Mitsuharu Misawa and Kenta Kobashi. Johnny Ace, who had been Hansen's regular partner, was told to bring in a new partner, who may be either Dan Spivey or Tom Zenk. They did something of an angle on July 19th in Okazaki during a Gordy and Williams vs. Hansen and Ace tag match, which ended with Ace getting pinned. Hansen destroyed Gordy with a chair and he bled. Juice is almost non-existent in All Japan rings, and seeing Hansen's chair shots this year, he's produced hardway juice on more than one occasion, Kawada and Black Heart Tom Nash being the most memorable. June 27th and July 4th television shows were headlined by six-man tag matches with Misawa's team versus Kawada's team, and they were 4.5 stars and 5 stars respectively. New Japan/War. War announced a major show on September 12th with $185 ringside, headlined by Masa Chono versus Genichiro Tenryu in a singles match for the first time. Chono was put over strong in the 2 nights in Sapporo, using the STF to score submissions in tag matches. New Japan announced a unique show on August 29th at the Tokyo Prince Hotel Ballroom. All seats in the 700-seat facility will be priced at $275 for a dinner show. Besides dinner with the New Japan wrestlers, there will be a 4-match card and a bridal fashion show with the New Japan wrestlers modeling men's wedding clothes and Takako Inoue and Manami Toyota modeling bridal wear. What a bizarre combination. Somehow I couldn't imagine anything resembling that to ever take place in the United States. Keiji Muto is doing a lot of jobs in tag matches against the Skinheads. New Japan announced a September 20th to September 26th tour which will include Hulk Hogan, Brutus Beefcake, Jake Roberts, Yoshiaki Fujiwara and Tenryu among others. The Hellraisers scored a clean win over the Jurassic Powers, Norton and Hercules, at the July 22nd show at Korakuen Hall. July 17th television show did a 7.8 rating. In Sapporo, the new Tiger Mask debuted a new maneuver. Shinjiro Otani was on El Samurai's shoulder and Tiger was on the lop rope ready to do the Road Warrior clothesline finish. Instead, Tiger came off the top rope and did a Frankensteiner on Otani. Rey Mysterio Jr. in Mexico has done that move with the opponent standing on the ground, but Tiger did it with the opponent on his tag team partner's shoulder. FMW, an outdoor show, was held July 24th at Kitakyushu Stadium. Not sure what the crowd was, but the main event was a no-rope explosive barbed wire landmine match with Atsushi Onita versus Mr. Pogo. Early in the match, Pogo blew a fireball out of his mouth into Onita's eyes and Onita fell out of the ring onto the landmines and the explosives went off and he bled from several body parts. Pogo continued to throw Onita into explosives when 61-year-old Mr. Chin came out to try and protect Onita, but Pogo destroyed him as well. As this was going on, Onita made his comeback and finished with a DDT on a chair in 13:08 to score the winning pinfall. As the story goes, both Onita and Chin had to be taken to the hospital after the card. Onita and Pogo have a rematch on August 22nd at a baseball stadium in Kobe. The vacant WWA Women's title was filled as Combat Toyota pinned Megumi Kudo on the undercard. Great Punk, who lost a loser leaves town for 1 year stipulation match on the May 5th Kawasaki Stadium card, returned to work the semifinal here. Unlike in the US where the promotions generally come up with excuses when they renege on loser leave stipulations, which usually make no sense but at least they try to make the fans think they do, this group simply ignored even attempting an explanation. Other Japan notes: Rings announced August 21st at the Yokohama Arena will have a double main event with Dirk Leon Frey versus Willie Williams and Folk Han versus Chris Dolman. Rings also has an August 6th date at Korakuen Hall to introduce several new fighters from Europe. Yoshiaki Yatsu and Shinichi Nakano held their press conference in Tokyo on July 21st announcing the formation of Social Pro Wrestling Federation, SPWF. The two didn't announce any names besides themselves in the promotion, but said the debut card would be August 21st in Kiryu with the first Tokyo date on August 22nd at Korakuen Hall. Yatsu, who was Japan's freestyle heavyweight champion in 1979 and 1987, said the group would be working amateur wrestling style, which would be different from any other wrestling style of the 18 or so active groups in the country. UWFI announced August 13th at Budokan Hall will be headlined by Super Vader vs. Kazuo Yamazaki, so the Nobuhiko Takada vs. Vader match is being held back. Tommy Cairo ECW, and Greg Bobkick, Motor City, will debut under UWFI style on that card. All Japan Women announced the October 9th card in Nagoya will be WrestleMarine Piad 93. On July 23rd in Kyoto, Mayumi Ozaki pinned Cutie Suzuki in a match to determine the number 1 contender for Dynamite Kansai's JWP title. On the July 23rd Now show in Sue, Umanosuke Ueda Jr., son of the veteran heel, made his debut losing to Kishin Kawabala. PWFG ran July 21st at Korakuen Hall but only drew about 1,250 fans at the once automatic sellout building for a show headlined by Yoshiaki Fujiwara, strangely going to a 30-minute draw with New Japan rookie prelim wrestler Toshimitsu Ishizawa. Result is strange since Fujiwara is getting a significant push in New Japan rings as a returning legend, and then on his own show does a Broadway with a rookie. Japanese television rundown. July 4th All Japan. 1. Rogers, wearing complete Big Boss Man outfit, pinned Mighty Inoue in a basic 3-minute squash. Bubba worked hard doing his signature WWF spots. 1 star. 2. Hansen and Ace beat Young Bloods. Match was better than it sounds, especially considering Ace was in most of the way. When Hansen was in, he pretty well destroyed both guys. Hansen is more believable than anyone at destroying people, probably because what he does is perilously close to just roughing people up rather than working. Hansen pinned Chris after a short lariat, then gave Mark a lariat after the match and left both men laying. 3 stars. 3. Misawa and Kobashi and Akiyama beat Kawada and Tao and Ogawa in 25-34. As good as these 6-man matches have been over the past several years, this may have been the best of all of them. Kawada being on the opposite side of Misawa and Kobashi adds a new dimension and new heat. If you're looking for matches of the year, this one deserves a serious look. It was quite a bit better than the Michaels-Jannetty match on Raw and on par with anything this year except maybe the Toyota Yamada vs Kansai Ozaki match at Dream Slam 2. Kobashi pinned Ogawa with a moonsault to win. July 10th JWP 1. Kansai and Marco beat Suzuki and Masami in 27-19. This was JWP's first television show. This wasn't as good as one of the better All Japan women matches, as the length kind of showed Kansai's weaknesses in some ways and that Suzuki isn't a top-flight worker. It's still built into a very good match with a lot of hot moves. At one point Devil Press slammed Cutie overhead and dropped her over the top rope to the floor. Marco also did a rocket launcher on Masami and Suzuki off the top rope while they were standing on the floor. It appeared Masami legit injured her neck catching Marco because she went down selling her neck big, and they went right to the finish with Kansai pinning Suzuki. 3 1/2 stars. 2. Fukuoka pinned Sumio Satoyama with a German suplex. Lots of suplexes back and forth toward the end. 2 stars. 3. Akutsu pinned Borishoy Kid, a character of which the Doink the Clown gimmick probably stemmed from. Akutsu has a nice spot where she does German suplexes, then bridges backwards, floats over, and in the same motion did a second, and then a third German suplex. 2.5 stars. 4. Takako Inoue, All Japan Women, pinned Ozaki in 26-23. Crowd was heavily pro-Ozaki in this interfederation match. The match was booked too long because the early part of the match was mainly wrist holds. It turned into a good match at the end. Takako did a new move, doing a chicken wing crossface and then taking Ozaki over backward into a German suplex from that position. Inoue finally won after a back suplex. 3 stars. July 11th All Japan. 1. Kawada pinned Akiyama in about 18 minutes. The match opened hot with Akiyama really fired up. It slowed a little in the middle but finished big. Kawada looked like he was torturing the rookie with submission holds, but Akiyama came back and showed spirit and got lots of hot near falls, including doing a Northern Light suplex and German suplex. Kawada finally cut off Akiyama with an enzouidri and pinned him after a shotgun lariat, where the sound of the lariat sounds like a shotgun going off. 3 3/4 stars. 2. Misawa and Kobashi beat Hansen and Bubba. Very good, with Kobashi taking a lot of punishment early from Hansen. Stan vs Kobashi was the main focus of the match since the two meet at Budokan Hall in a singles match. Bubba missed a splash from the top and Kobashi hit a moonsault on him, but Hansen made the save. Finally Misawa pinned Bubba after a splash off the top rope. 3 1/2 stars. USWA Chris Adams debuted on Memphis television on July 24th. Early in the show, as Brian Christopher was in a match, Adams came out and yelled at Miss Simpson, "Lonnie Adams, what are you doing?" Christopher started screaming at Adams to leave her alone, and finally Adams screamed out that she was his wife. Christopher and Adams then got into it and had a match signed for July 26th, where the major speculation will be which corner Simpson will be in. Jeff Jarrett had a television squash match which saw C.W. Bergstrom and Melvin Penrod and Vampire Warrior attack him until the Moondogs, Cujo Lanny Keene and Spot Larry Booker, returned with 2x4s to make the save for Jarrett. Japanese photographer Jimmy Suzuki was shown getting attacked by Burt Prentice on July 18th, which led to him doing an interview. Suzuki was asked where the wrestling was better, in Japan or the United States. Suzuki said he hated to say it, but that the wrestling in Japan was better because in Japan they don't have fat, out-of-shape sissies running around ringside, in reference to Prentice. Prentice came out and backed Suzuki up against the wall, but Suzuki blocked a punch and came back with a Baba chop. PG-13 also returned as heels. A lot of people have been complimentary about how well Melvin Penrod plays his character and that Disco Inferno is a riot. July 26th in Memphis had Jerry Lawler vs. Vampire for the USWA title, Moondogs and Jarrett vs. Vampire and Bergstrom and Penrod, Christopher vs. Adams, Suzuki vs. Prentice, Jarrett vs. Rock and Roll Phantom, Don Bass, and more. On the July 18th card, Jeff Gaylord took a horrible, unplanned bump. He was on the top rope, lost his balance, and fell backward to the floor, cracking his back and head on the ground. His opponent, a green wrestler known as the Hawk, didn't panic and threw Gaylord into the ring and allowed Gaylord to small package him, thus getting the correct hand in the air. SMW lineups were pretty well finalized this past week for the 3 major shows in August, which will be the focus of the Fan Week get-together. On August 13th, Hot Summer Night in Morristown, Tennessee will have Bob and Scott and Steve Armstrong vs. Heavenly Bodies and Jim Cornette, Rock and Roll Express vs. Bruise Brothers for the SMW tag titles in a no DQ match, Tracy Smothers vs. Brian Lee for the SMW title with Tim Horner in Smothers' corner to keep Tammy Fitch from interfering. Kevin Sullivan vs. Mongolian Stomper in a Mongolian death match. Don't know what this is either. Dirty White Boy vs. Bobby Blaze, where if Blaze lasts 10 minutes he gets $10,000, but if he doesn't, he gets his head shaved. And Horner vs. Chris Condito in a match where the loser has to drink milk from a baby bot. August 14th will be Fire on the Mountain 2 in Johnson City, Tennessee with a Rage in a Cage match. War Games rules except you can also win by handcuffing all members of one team to the cage, with Bob and Scott and Steve Armstrong and Rock and Roll Express vs. Heavenly Bodies and Bruise Brothers and Cornette with Big Boss Man as referee. Cornette on interviews has acknowledged that he and Boss Man go back a long way. Also Smothers vs. Lee in a coal miner's glove match, Sullivan vs. Boss Man, Condito vs. Horner in a loser has to wear a diaper match, and White Boy vs. Mongolian Stomper. August 20th will be K-Town Showdown in Knoxville, headlined by Bob Armstrong vs. Cornette in a lumberjack match where all the lumberjacks will have tennis rackets. If Bob doesn't put Cornette in the hospital, then Bob will refund all the fans' ticket money. Semi-final is a 4 corners elimination tag match with Bodies, Bruise Brothers, Rock and Roll and Scott and Steve Armstrong, Sullivan vs. Boss Man, Horner vs. Condito in a baby bottle match, Smothers vs. Lee in a coal miner's glove match, which won't be taking place since Smothers starts in Japan and White Boy vs. Blaze with the same stipulations as Morristown. Bobby and Jackie Fulton were in for one shot on July 24th in Welch, West Virginia, losing a tag title match with the Bruise Brothers, since the Rock and Roll Express were in Japan. The television tapings on July 19th in Williamsburg, Kentucky mainly contained angles building up the aforementioned matches. The only competitive TV title match was White Boy vs. Steve Armstrong, ending in a DQ when the Bodies interfered and Bob made the save using a baseball bat. Rock and Roll Express beat Bruise Brothers in a non-title challenger match. Brian Armstrong also debuted at the tapings, pinning Killer Kyle with a leg sweep. Corvette and Bodies hit the ring after the match, but Scott and Steve and Bob made the save. Bruise Brothers ran in, but Rock and Roll then made another save using a baseball bat. On this past weekend's television show, they aired the finish of the Smothers Lee title change from last week in a post-match interview. They also aired a tape where Cornette pinned Bob Armstrong in a 6-man tag from last weekend after Tom Pritchard hit Bob with a chair. Cornette said that he's ready for anyone and challenged Hulk Hogan to a match at the next WrestleMania, which I guess meant more than it seemed to on the surface. Condito attacked Homer during his interview and hit him with the WWA title belt and shoved a baby bottle into his mouth and said he'd bring Homer to New Jersey and bury him next to Jimmy Hoffa. Texas, Ted Dawson, who debuted as television announcer for this group last week, lasted just 1 week and is already gone. Dawson claims he quit. GWF claims he was fired for poor performance. July 23rd, GWF main event was King Parsons, managed by Tony Adams against Chris Adams. Parsons won when Tony hit Chris with the Rudy Poot stick very stiffly. July 30th has Adams vs. Parsons, Colossal Kongs vs. Angel and Chaz Taylor, Tim Brooks vs. Scott Putski, Stephen Dane vs. Alex Porto, and the debut of Dr. Doom. The first GWF television show on local television aired July 25th on KTTV. The show was filled with older matches with all but one, Adams vs. Parsons, having nothing to do with the current storylines. The deal with KTTV is for 6 shows and reportedly it is costing the promotion $8,000 per week for the time slot, which sounds like a financial disaster waiting to happen if that's the case. Big Don July 25th had an advertised main event that didn't take place since Chris Adams hadn't returned from Memphis, which marks the 3rd time Adams has missed a scheduled Big D main event. Because of that, don't expect Big D to put Adams in a headline spot any longer. August 1st we'll have Gary Young vs. Billy Joe Travis in a chain match, Mr. vs. Terry Sims in a lumberjack strap match, and Mike Davis vs. Bill Irwin, with the winner getting a title shot at Big D champ Rod Price when he returns from Japan. John Arezzi is running a show on August 21st at Fair Park Coliseum in Dallas with Conan El Barbaro vs. Kevin Sullivan and Wendy Richter vs. Medusa plus Mexican Midgets, Jake Roberts, Bob Orton, Greg Valentine, Warlord, and Barbarian. Here and There and at AJ Watson, a woman wrestler who had worked mainly Florida Independence for the past 4 years, died suddenly on June 24th of an overdose of crack cocaine. Watson was just 29. George South's PWF has dates July 30th in Belmont, North Carolina and July 31st in Lincolnton, North Carolina. Replays of GWF have replaced EQ on Monday nights on Channel America. Lord of Discipline won the Aqua title from Frankie Rose on July 22nd in Tampa. Herb Abrams ran a UWF show on July 24th in Minot, North Dakota, drawing about 300 fans as part of the state fair. Rumblings of a new promotion getting started in British Columbia, running the Vancouver area, called International Championship Wrestling, financed by a vet dealership, and supposedly going to use WWF name wrestlers who aren't being booked by WWF. Carmen Desperito of Wrestling Eye magazine will promote a show on July 31st at Wilson Park Stadium in Milwaukee featuring Baron Van Rasch and Jake Milliman. Eddie Gilbert ran an angle with former Eagles quarterback Ron Jaworski on July 11th at the Eagles Nest, a golf course Jaworski owns. The two argued and Jaworski shoved Gilbert, who took a big bump for him. The item made the local newspaper gossip columns. Ladies Major League Wrestling is running a rare all-women show on August 28th in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, with Bambi vs. Lady X, Peggy Lee Leather for the group's championship, Richter vs. Rusty Thomas, Heidi Lee Morgan and Misty Blue Sims vs. Kat LaRue and Nasty Angel, Penelope Paradise vs. Candy Divine, and an interview segment with Sir Oliver Humperdinck. WWF, TNT from Puerto Rico and Van Hammer both got tryouts at the tapings in Utica. TNT put over Glenn Ruth, while Hammer, using the same ring name as in WCW but working as a heel, put over Virgil. With rating sweeps over by the time these tapings air, the number of competitive matches taped for syndication was whittled down to almost zero. Ludwig Berga, who is getting a huge push, did an interview on one of the shows saying something major would be taking place in 6 days. Supposedly interviews have already been taped with Lex Luger regarding the subject of steroids, so he doesn't repeat the mistake that felled Hulk Hogan. Luger was also on Live with Regis and Kathy Lee on July 20th, although the appearance was uneventful. Largely his media tour has been met with little response as far as mainstream stories, but it's made for some effective television footage as far as getting him over to wrestling fans. Sometime this past week there was a demonstration with picket signs in front of Titan's office building in Stamford, Connecticut, done by the family of Tom Cole. From the sounds of things, it apparently turned into a circus. Monday Night Raw on July 19th, headlined by the Michaels Jannetty match, did a 2.9 rating, while All-American that same weekend did a 2.4 and Mania a 1.0. Raw on July 26th was headlined by Bret Hart vs. Bam Bam Bigelow, with Liars getting counted out chasing Jerry Lawler. Lawler was in the balcony doing one-liners on Hart's parents. Randy Savage vs. Doink headlined the August 2nd show. The match had Savage getting pounded on most of the way. Doink at the end was distracted by a midget, Tiger Jackson, dressed up like Savage, and Savage pinned him. Jackson will now work under the ring name Macho Midget. If you recall, originally he was going to use the ring name Little Hulkster. August 9th Raw has Mr. Hughes vs. Tatanka, ending when Hughes was DQ'd for using the urn. They also had a mixed 6-man tag match where Jackson worked as the babyface Macho Midget, plus the Heavenly Bodies worked a squash match. Tahitian Savage Lloyd Anoya worked some house shows in the Northeast this past weekend, putting over Damien Demento. He's worked Indies and WSING under the name Samoan Warrior, and is related to Samu and Yokozuna. WCW only small-town house shows again this past week, except for a worldwide taping on July 20th in Huntsville, Alabama. The taping was for shows that air August 6th, August 13th, and August 20th, were the 3 weeks prior to the first Disney taping. The main angle was to get the Ric Flair-Rick Rude angle started, in a Flair for the Gold segment. Rude kissed Fifi and Fifi slapped her. Rude started getting hot and Flair told Rude that she's not his type. When Flair turned his back on Rude, Rude grabbed the NWA title belt and KO'd Flair and gave him a rude awakening and left him laying. Rude will start doing interviews saying out with the old, in with the bold. I believe that will be the final Flair for the Gold segment as it's being discontinued. The other angle on the taping is that Eric Watts will be pushed as an underneath heel. It started in a tag match with Walls and Frankie Lancaster against the Hollywood Blondes. Watts walked out on Lancaster and started blaming his partners for not being able to carry the load and saying he's going to win at all costs. Watts and Lancaster had a singles match later in the taping with Watts working as a heel. Nasty Boys beat Chris Benoit and Bobby Eaton. Not sure if either team worked as a face or not. Nasty Boys and Harlem Heat received big pushes at the taping. On July 24th WCW show, Benoit and Eaton even put over the Polaroid Twins. The Saturday night show will shortly be broken up into 2 one-hour shows that air one after the other rather than grouped as a 2-hour show. The reason is apparently a television ratings gimmick. Both WWF and WCW sell syndicated advertising based on a cumulative rating, which means they add up the ratings of all their syndicated and cable shows into one number and sell time based on that number. That's the main reason for the overexposure of wrestling on television is the idea it creates more ad revenue because each additional program adds to the cumulative rating. The actual ratings for the WWF syndicated television programs themselves are way down. However, the cumulative rating has shown an increase of late because of Mania, a new show, and Raw. Because roughly 60% of the country has both TBS and USA, you can multiply the weekly cable ratings by 0.6 and get what share of the syndicated numbers are from cable. For WWF, about 3.6 of the weekly 6 rating is from cable, while in WCW, about 3.0 of the weekly 4 rating is from cable, which shows just how weak its syndication has become. However, by splitting Saturday night into 2 shows, you'll add about 1.2 points to each week's cumulative syndicated rating, so instead of a 4, it'll be a 5.2, or on paper look to be more closely competitive with WWF. WCW on July 17 did a 2.2 rating, main event that weekend a 2.0 and Power Hour a 1.1. The Flair and Anderson vs. Benoit and Eaton match aired on main event on July 25. It was a very good match from a work rate standpoint, but it made no impact because nobody did anything with the match to make it seem important before, during or after. The Marietta, Georgia Daily Journal reported last week that Barry Windham is being sued by Janet Glover after an argument on April 2 in her apartment where she is claiming Windham punched her in the face and broke her jaw in 3 places and broke all her teeth, and she spent several days in the hospital and her medical bills were between $5,000 and $10,000. The lawsuit was filed July 1 in Cobb County State Court, seeking unspecified damages. No criminal complaint was filed in the incident, and the newspaper reported that the relationship between the two was unknown. 2 huge men from Southern California are going to be getting tryouts shortly. One's name is Jaime Cartridge, who surely won't use that as his ring name since he's said to be 6'9", 475. He worked about 5 or 6 matches many years ago in Los Angeles and was said to have potential, but never wrestled since. The other is a guy who worked as The Wall, said to be 6'1", 400 pounds and said not to have potential. As you can see, WCW is looking mainly at bringing in big guys rather than guys who can perform in the ring, which should do wonders for the in-ring product. Gordon Solie and Larry Zbyszko are now hosting WCW Pro in the few markets the show remains in. Missy Hyatt will be featured in an upcoming magazine called Atlanta's Most Beautiful Women. Tim Whitehead, a longtime correspondent to this and other newsletters, will be starting on the WCW hotline on Wednesdays starting in mid-August doing a Where Are They Now? And This Week in Wrestling History segments. Speaking of the media, Sid Vicious no-showed after being booked and confirmed on the Wrestling Insider's radio show both of the past 2 weekends. At least the second time, Rob Parker came on as a last-minute replacement. Pace Entertainment, which booked WCW on a sold show at the Alamo Dome in San Antonio for $50,000, got a similar deal for WCW for a show in September at Texas Stadium, the same location of the famous Ric Flair-Kerry Von Erich match from 1984, which is going to look great with less than 1,000 fans. Talk is that 1994 will have 8 pay-per-view shows and a limited amount of house shows. After putting 8,600 fans into the building in Biloxi, Mississippi for the pay-per-view show, WCW fired Bob Fox as a house show promoter. He'll likely hook up with WWN. FF, although that largely was because they had no plans to run any more Dales in Louisiana, Mississippi, Texas, etc. as they cut back to being a southeastern office. The pay-per-view show on September 19 scheduled from Houston will no longer be in Houston. Not sure of new location, ditto the Battle Bowl pay-per-view show originally for New Orleans. That's it for this issue of The Observer. We will be back after a short break.